Let's talk about the process of studying to be able to preach. We're dealing with an ancient body of literature. You actually have studied the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. You have degrees in Old Testament. So you're dealing with parts of the Old Testament, for instance, that are very foreign, alien to our contemporary contexts. But then you are speaking into modern cultural contexts that are varied. Right. People out there in your congregation are all over the map in their relationships. They're coming from different cultures. How do you prepare to bridge that gap?
One of my mentors, Haddon Robinson, talked about exegeting the text and then exegeting the culture, and I find both of those to be important. So beginning with the text and exegeting that and understanding what was the original writer communicating to that original group of listeners or readers, and really getting a handle on that, understanding the author's intent.
So would you say that exegesis is a process of listening, learning to listen and hear what God has said through that original situation?
It is,
in the text.
It is, and it's critical.
Okay, so you start there.
Right, you start there, but you can't leave it there, and sometimes sermons that just stay in the ancient world and assume that people will figure out how to bridge that gap,
right,
aren't very helpful. So
people walk away from the sermon and they say, well, that was interesting.
Right, or worse, that was boring.
Okay,
because it doesn't connect with their lives.
Okay.
You're right, but yeah, at best, they'll walk away and say, well, that was interesting, but they don't see a connection.
Right.
So then I think there has to be an understanding of the culture and what they're facing, and in some ways that can be, I think for someone who has gone to seminary, been trained in languages and exegesis, that can be as challenging or even harder to say, all right, what are they facing? What's going on in their world, and then trying to say, all right, what the writer in Judges said through these stories, or what Paul said to the Corinthians, how does that translate to what my people are facing today? How can I help them follow Christ? How can I help them honor the Lord?
So talk to me a little bit about that process. How do you move from understanding and really hearing the ancient, complex Word of God, and then moving to relevant communication also in a complex situation? So can you help us there?
Sure.
With that?
I would say for me, one of the main emphasis, my starting point is basically asking myself the question, what is this text talking about?
Okay.
What is the main emphasis that the Apostle Paul is trying to get across, or Peter's trying to get across?
Okay, so kind of the big idea.
Sure, the big idea, absolutely. And but even leading up to that, there is so much work that's involved in that. Certain words that may shed light on that big idea, in which it is important that as preachers that we try to find out what's going on there.
So we all know that feeling of weakness and inadequacy in terms of preaching this wonderful body of ancient literature called the Bible. I think of Paul's words, it's not that we're adequate in ourselves to consider anything as coming from ourselves, right? But at the same time, we don't want to be irresponsible or sloppy in what we do, so we need tools that are going to help us. What tools do you find most helpful in your process of preparation for preaching?
Sure, absolutely. I would definitely say a host of commentaries, a wide array of those, plus many of language tools as well, especially on software.